All right, the subject of my section of this today is how to keep the layout clean. John Gorman and I did a clinic about 2 years ago that was called Frick and Frack, and it was just an absolute riot. I enjoyed it immensely because John always figured out how to do it like Frick and cheap, and I was always telling everybody how you can do it the most expensive way, and we had a lot of fun doing it. But this has been cut from that. The question of the day is, what is the best way to keep your wheels clean? It's going to be controversial, and we'll have questions either at the end of the presentation or at the end of the group. Why did they get dirty? Plastic wheels are the primary source of the gunk. It's not true. The source is related to the dust content, definitely. Cleaning agents can leave contaminants behind, and that's not so good. Construction dust is very bad. And for those of you who work on garden railroads, raccoon poop is very bad for your truck. Engineering issues. I spent a lot of time in that clinic with John talking about this, but for 15 minutes, we can't get into a lot of detail. But basically, the engineering issues revolve around electrical arcing, chemical reactions, and atmospheric conditions. And let me address them one by one. In electrical arcing, microscopic arcing takes place between the wheel and the track. And I really do mean microscopic. You have to look at it with a lot of optic power to be able to see that arc taking place. Those irregularities on the wheels and truck are where dust configures itself, and that is the culprit then that makes the either track or the wheel set go bad, and that causes a momentary loss of electrical contact. And you can see that in your lighting flickering and or going over the track. That's what the problem is. It's intensified if your wheels and track are not cleaned regularly. The chemical reactions are a form of the kind of track you use. And in most instances now, it's all nickel oxide. And the crud is deposited on the wheels and face, and it's a byproduct of the electrical arcing. So you're getting the arc, but then you're getting the deposit taking place chemically on the wheels and on the track. There is an interaction of the metal and dust components of the air in the room, and that is then triggered by the arcing and thus creating the gunk. And that result is that stuff you find on your wheel set. And it can be literally scraped away sometimes with a knife edge. It's so bad. The atmospheric conditions are very important in your layout. Dust will eventually settle on the track surface. No matter how much you try to protect the track surface when you're working on it, you got to do it very carefully. Positive pressure in the room, meaning the positive air pressure that comes in from your HVAC system, can help control some of the dust. So if you have your layout in a room in which you have feed coming from your HVAC system, but you don't have a return there, that will create positive pressure in your room, forcing the air out of the room through doors and things like that. And that's pretty good if you can do that. Humidity has a very high impact. High humidity is probably bad, and low humidity is probably bad. So you want to have something kind of in the middle of, in the normal sense of how humid is the room.
Doesn't sound very optimistic.
So, well, you know, how many people have got layout problems with the dirt and stuff like that? So what gets dirty? Tracks, engine wheel sets, rolling stock, and turnouts. And I'll go through each of them as we go through this. In track, cleaning cars, There are roller-like centerline products for wet and dry. There are pad tanks like Tony's CMX Clean Machine. There are rotating brush cars like the MNP motorized cleaning car. There's friction devices like a Masonite track cleaner. Hand-built, requires a lot of rate. And I would tell you, do not buy one of these. Make it yourself if you're gonna do it that way. There's a lot of information on the internet on how to build these, okay? But spending money for the prior ones comes at a high price, okay? Good cleaning agents that you apply directly to the rails are shown below. Goo Gone, yellow liquid, yellow only. Do not use orange Goo Gone. Okay, it's got chemicals in it that work. I mean, it smells better, but it doesn't do so good for the job. 70% or 90% isopropyl alcohol at a drugstore works pretty good. Probably the best of all of these. There's Atlas, put it in the bottle and charge you more money for it. And then shop towels when you're all done. And so I would suggest on this slide, isopropyl alcohol and always using shop towels is the right way to go. For track conditioning, a lot of people have used automatic transmission fluid. Bill Robbins is a deep believer in this. 1 quart of automatic transmission fluid is a lifetime supply, or maybe even 2 lifetimes. Does it leave a conductive film? And the answer there is maybe. The science says the bone dry electrical arcs cause the damage, and I don't know. Mineral spirits may work better than the alcohol that I mentioned. If it does, that gives credence to the idea of using the automatic transmission fluid. Some of you use compressed graphite sticks. If you use them sparingly, it may provide a coating to get high conductivity. Graphite, of course, is highly conductive, and it's also quite slippery. Track polishing, Bright Boys. Lots of people use Bright Boys. Walters sells a standard grit, which is more aggressive. Kratex has a rubber adhesive that sticks in stick size. Walters sells these. Extra Fleinbach is less aggressive. So between the two of these, Bright Boy is aggressive and the Kratex rubber adhesive is less aggressive. And then if you really want to get into grinding, Dremel tool elements that can be used, but boy, that really does a lot of damage, I think. All right, so the emergency surgery that could be used on track is to start by using a very fine grit sandpaper, sanding carefully but not aggressively. Then use a medium grit stick like Bright Boy. Finish it with a Kratex fine grit stick. And then when you're all done, it's probably a very good idea to wipe the track clean with a shop towel and alcohol. But remember, the title of this thing is emergency surgery. You don't want to do this all the time. This is something that if you really haven't used your layout for a very long time and got to get it clean, you got to go through these steps. And this is only for the track. Now for the engines. The engines require a lot of handwork with a shop towel and cleaning fluid. Again, Goo Gone yellow is good to use, but there are some objectives that people raise about the chemical residue. The 70–90% isopropyl alcohol from the drugstore, the only residue you get is if the material is not totally removed. And then using a clean shop towel, definitely difficult in rotating the wheels to access the cleaning space on these. All right, Bruce DeMaeyer's expensive solution. Use a commercial powered engine wheel cleaner like Roto Wheel, Tidy Track, the Trix Mini Trax cleaning brush, or the Katie Speedy Driver. The cheap way to do this, in a much better way, John Gorman, is to, when these things fail to do the job or break your budget, saturate a small piece of shop towel with cleaning fluid of your choice, the isopropyl alcohol, for example, and place it anywhere on the track. Place one set of trucks on the rail for power and the other one on the towel. Lightly apply some downward pressure on the powered truck and hold the engine. Speed up the engine with your throttle and let the engine clean its own wheels. Then reverse the physical direction of the engine and clean the other wheel set in the same manner. Finish using a clean, dry shop towel on both sets of trucks, and you will get rid of all of the problems on your trucks. And it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg like the Bruce DeMaeyer solution. And I bow to John Gorman for this idea. Rolling stock. First rule and only rule. Keep the track and engine wheels spotlessly clean. Then it's very important, if these are done in a regular program, the rolling stock may never have to be cleaned. So tracks and engine wheels start with getting them cleaned. Then if you don't have to, if you do that well, you probably don't have to do your rolling stock. But inspect the cars to see how bad they're getting gunked up. And if necessary, and if you have a lot of free time on your hands, clean as previously described by hand with shop towels, toothbrush, and cleaning fluids. If very bad and you're not living on Social Security, replace them with new plastic wheels. If very bad and you're very rich, replace them all with metal wheels. That's my recommendation. So that's why keep that track and keep those engines clean, and you won't have to worry about your rolling stock. Let's remember the science, okay? Remember the chemical analysis we discussed earlier. Plastic wheels have nothing to do with the problem. Metal wheels are just more effective at wearing away the oxide layer. The wheels aren't responsible for the problem. They're the major removers of the oxide, and plastic is just a poor remover. Okay, on turnouts, while I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, use a small electronics vacuum cleaner to clean all the debris out of the turnout action. You can get an adapter for your shop vac to do that. Compressed air in a can can be helpful, found at Best Buy. Clean the turnouts and make sure they meet the NMRA standards by using a track gauge for track clearances. If possible, inspect the turnout with a magnifying glass, operate the switch manually to make sure the operation is smooth, and then use tiny files, jeweler files, to make fine adjustments, and carefully clean the turnout rails by hand. That's all you really have to do that's unique to cleaning the turnouts. Okay, as a wrap up, develop a routine maintenance program for your engines and track and make it a scheduled event. Once a month, once every quarter, once every year. This comes from my telephone background, okay? A routine program done this way keeps you up and running and keeps you out of trouble out in the future. Be religious about it. It'll make a big difference in the way your layout operates. Use the internet for ideas, but be careful. There's a lot of bad information on the internet, not by people that intentionally do it, but they haven't really used it long enough or good enough to know what they're doing. And they make it sound like it's a magnificent answer.